Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to How to Rock the Virtual Stage. I'm the host of Trigger, Rich Bontrager. Welcome back for another great night of tips and tricks and insights to help you better rock the virtual stage. Whether you're a podcaster or a broadcaster, whether you have a ministry, an organization that you're trying to get online and better communicate to the people. My goal, my passion is to take my 30 years of broadcasting and public speaking and combine them together every week to leverage the skills and experiences to better help you and equip you so you can market, sell, promote, and do the best things you can virtually. The virtual stage is here to stay, and it's also ever expanding. This is a platform now is getting better and better, and we know it's going to be here for a long time, even post-COVID. The virtual stage has now become a major platform for influence, sales, marketing, communication. I want to help you do that. By doing that, I get you some of the best guests in the world to come on, and we do this completely live every week. Coming up next week, I have two shows for you. It's the holiday seasons. We're throwing in some extra fun stuff for you. Monday night, we're going to do a special show. That will be on December the 14th. And I am going to have with me Mark Schulman. But Mark is going to be a guest. And you think about the rocker, you think about the personality. He fought stage fright for years and years. He now speaks with people on overcoming stage fright. And Mark is going to be on. There's a lot of things to talk about with Mark. Mark Schulman is going to be talking about that with us. So please join that. And then we have Andrew Weiss will be with me on December 16th. Andrew is going to be joining me. And Andrew is a virtual speaker, but he books people for speaking. The big thing that we're trying to figure out is virtual speakers is where are the gigs? How do you secure them? Who do you contact? Who's show running now events virtually and booking great guests? He's going to be on to talk about what's it like to get booked, how do you present yourself for virtual bookings, and how to get ahead of the curve coming up in 2021. So we have Monday and Wednesday next week. Please join us for How to Rock the Virtual Stage. Get your tickets at Eventbrite. We'll have information always on all the different social media platforms. Coming up tonight, we're going to do co-coaching, sharing, and just interview fun tonight. And the second half of the show, we're going to bring you in, and you're going to ask your questions to my guests completely live. So take notes. Sit back and relax as I'm going to be welcoming to the stage Eli Marcus here tonight. Eli Marcus is a host of the Motivation Show. It's a podcast. So we're going to talk a little bit about podcasting tonight, I'm sure. He has the City Guide publication that he also works with, and he's the president of Eli Marcus Success. Now, the thing about Eli is he's a connector to the stars. He has had an amazing career working with phenomenal people. He's also one of the top selling ads people ever. We're going to talk about ads, marketing, how you leverage all that with your great guests. He's also produced events, and he is the former CEO of the Seminar Center. And when he was with the Seminar Center, he got to work with big people like Michael Jackson and others. So we're going to talk about the stars, how to get great guests, and also how to show run your shows, because I'm sure Eli has had some problems along the way that things didn't work out the way you quite expected. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome my friend, the mayor, Eli Marcus. Welcome to the show tonight, Eli.
Well, thank you, Rich. I am ready to rock that virtual stage. So let's get her rocking.
So first of all, let's just back up a little bit. For those that know Eli, there's a nickname flowing around. I just referred to the mayor. We've had a lot of fun with that, getting to know each other. Just briefly tell us, in your status, in your way that you work, how did you get dubbed the mayor?
Well, I've, of course, worked in the theater world for 30 some odd years. And as publisher of City Guide, co-publisher. And in that capacity, there was a producer that I met, Ken Davenport, to be specific, who's produced a lot of great shows. And he says to me, there's got to be like two of you out there, because like every time I walk down Times Square, I see you. He says, you're the mayor of Times Square. So, okay, we'll go with that.
So like the trigger, that's part of branding, that's part of marketing. And those are things that really right now in the Zoom virtual age, that's gold. When someone gives you that, that's something you really got to leverage and use and embrace it, don't you? You don't want to cast it aside at all, do you?
Well, I think it's a great thing to have a nickname or be known for something. If you think about Lady Gaga, well, her real name is Stephanie Germanata, So nicknames work, titles work. And if you could be known for something and have it as a conversation piece, that is part of networking.
So talk about networking for you. This is your gold piece. You were doing networking long before it's become a new LinkedIn and all the platforms. Everyone's trying to build their list and get people connected. But you found a way to connect with people on that A list or the up and comer list. Take us back. How did you fall into it, and what were the secrets you began to learn about that?
Well, I'm going to take you back to when I was a young whippersnapper in my 20s and I was wearing that three-piece suit. Remember the three-piece suit, Rich?
Yes.
And it was 95 degrees in New York City, and I was given a zip code to cold call. Cold calling is a tough thing to do in the mean streets of New York City. And I was schwitzing. And if you know anything about New York, you'll understand what the word schwitz means in a 95-degree summery day. So I went up to the top of the building on 40th Street and Fifth Avenue, the edge of the 10017 zip code. And I started to do this thing called cold call. And, I really didn't know any better. And what I did is I failed over 30,000 times. It is the Guinness World Record that you don't really want. But guess what? By failing 30,000 times, it led me to succeed. It led me to learn what works. So to me, networking is a lot like cold calling. And what I learned from those failures led me to my 10 rules of networking.
Okay, so first of all, before we get into 10 rules, we may not cover all 10 here tonight, but that's okay. But let's talk about the art of learning falling down. There's a great quote from the Batman movie, Batman Begins. Why do we fall down, Master Bruce? To learn how to get back up. So talk about failure, because the more you reach out, the more you try, you are not going to always make it. It's not going to be a home run every time. What do you do? How do you bounce back up?
Well, first of all, I have changed my definition of failure. You see, I actually embrace failure. Most people get devastated by failure. What I mean by embracing failure is that when you fail, you're actually one step closer to success. And the point is, when you fail, you've put your effort in, you've done what you needed to do, and you shouldn't be so caught up in the final result. What you should say to yourself is it's better to have tried and failed than never to have tried at all. So I keep saying to myself, be proud. You made the effort. I put my head on the pillow at night when I get doors slammed in my face, 100 times a day. And I'm actually proud of myself. I said, damn, that's a lot of doors slammed in my face. I feel good. I actually got in the game.
So we're going to have a quick little poll here. We're going to keep going into those 10 things a little bit, see how much any of those we can share. We have a lot to talk about. Remember, take notes. Don't forget the second half of the show, you guys are all going to join us for a live Q&A. But I want to hear from everyone watching and joining us live here. What industry do you kind of reach into, work with right now? The leadership that you're involved with, entertainment. Are you in the education side of things? Is it sports? Or is it something other that you're involved with? Maybe you're a podcaster, you're a host, you're a writer, you're an author. But what slice of industry are you working in? We just want to know who you are, where you're coming from tonight. We're launching the poll. Eli and I are going to keep rocking here. Eli, start talking about some of those 10 tips that you've learned to help with the networking and getting to the A-listers.
Well, the first one, you've heard that Bronx term, have some cojones. You've got to have courage. You've got to get in the game. You don't try to network. You do or do not. There is no try. You remember this little guy, Yoda? So many people have said, I'm going to try to make it here tonight. What that basically means is they're probably not going to make it. They're thinking they're being kind, but I can see through that. You're either committed or you're not in this life. So once you commit to something, you're going to be successful. You're going to reap the rewards. There just is no try.
So that's number one.
Yep.
Wise Yoda. That's easy to remember.
That's right.
What's number two?
Number two really is quality over quantity. And so many of us, we meet so many different people. And at the end of the day, we start to question ourselves like, is this really working? I went to this networking event. I haven't really gotten anything out of it. I haven't gotten any business because, what you need to do is identify who are the players and stick with the players. You can't put equal energy into 10,000 people. So you've got to be able to know who is going to play in your sandbox, who is willing to reciprocate. And you can smell that a mile away.
So with that, if you're going with quality over quantity. You're also going to learn how to say no to people. They might want to get on your podcast, they might want to be connected with you, but if it really doesn't fit your frame of work, you have to be able to say no to keep the quality up there, right?
You have to identify your critical few. You have to find out who matters more. It's just the way it is. When I say that who matters more, I mean in the business level. I mean everybody matters. But in a business level, you have to know who is really kind of getting you, who you're feeling it with, who is willing to introduce you to other people.
And that's going to be the network to the network to the network, because the more you do that, the more doors will open up. Before we go to number 3 here, here's the results of our poll. Let's just check in here and see what you think. Here is our results tonight of the industries we're talking to. Leadership, thought leaders is number 1 here. And then we have entertainment, sports, and people in the other category. When you talk about networking, is it all the same? Do the principles translate over, or are there different slices for some of what we have here tonight?
Well, I think, there's just general rules that before you even go into a networking situation, that you actually know what the rules are, you know what you're trying to accomplish. And that goes right into rule number 3. It's think about the person first, not their title. So many people are caught up in who is this person? What is their title? What can they do for me? And you have to look at the individual before you look at the title. They're not a thing. They're a person first.
So Johnny Carlson used to be one of the best guys on TV. He treated everyone like a person. He had fun with them. He found those neat little stories. The person is really important. You will get to the career, to the business. And today, is it even more important with the virtual stage? You think you have to do the person, the real human side before you get in the business side, even more so virtually?
Absolutely. Look, this is all about people at the end of the day. We're all interconnecting with each other on a human level, not on a business level. Humanity first, business will follow.
All right, that's number 3. I hope you guys are taking notes. Number 4.
I mean, you have to be a giver. You have to be willing to invest in the person. You be generous, figure out how you can help them. And here's a biggie, Rich. You have to stop obsessing about the reciprocity, because we're all thinking, well, I did this for them. What did they do for me now? You have to allow the reciprocity to unfold. If you obsess about it, it's going to come across as not genuine. So just be genuine. Don't worry about the reciprocity. Just do your part. Drop your agenda. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but you got to go in there thinking about the other person first and give them, and just don't worry, it'll flow. And if it doesn't flow with that person, you'll get the percentages. It's a numbers game.
So give and give more. And let me just stress that, because I've had people that are amazing people that I work with, talk with, no give back, maybe 2 months, 3 months. I get a surprise email, surprise phone call, and they're like, I was thinking about you, or someone else triggered this thing, boom. And the reason was they remembered the give, the relationship, and then the rest of the funnel came in. Time is still your friend, right?
Well, look, as far as I'm concerned, if somebody at some point doesn't give back, you have a gentle conversation with them. The first thing you always do, first of all, is always give somebody a compliment. If you're going to go in there like a bull in a china shop and just say, oh, something, I gave you 10 things and you gave me nothing. I mean, you're just going to have a war on your hands. A person's going to get defensive. I might not get defensive because I'll understand it. I'll actually thank the person for pointing it out, but most people won't do that. So go in there and give a little compliment and say, I just want to ask you a question. I've been noticing that, I've been giving you a lot of stuff and it's not quite flowing back to me. Tell me where I'm going wrong so I can apologize.
The other thing with that I've learned is, if you don't have the expectation, the surprises are way bigger to celebrate. When they do make that phone call, when they come back, and I've done it freely on myself, it's like way bigger than I could ever ask or imagine or plan for. Have you found that to be true?
Absolutely.
So what's the next one?
Well, to me, again, you're talking about human beings, right? Everybody's struggling. In a COVID world, you're struggling. Even if you're pretending not to struggle, you're probably struggling. Life is hard. Have some sympathy, have some empathy, compliment people. But I mean, sincerely, don't just, throw off a compliment just to throw a compliment, but you can say something simple. You can notice something, a beautiful tie, nice jacket. Hey, are those your kids? everybody wants to hear something nice about themselves. And most people aren't complimented that often. I don't get tons of compliments.
Well,
And when I get one, it stands out.
well, everyone wants positive feedback,
Yeah.
honest positive feedback. So you
Yeah.
can tell them the good, the bad, the ugly. If you do it the right way, they'll know it's generous, sincere, and you can tell them anything.
Yeah.
But people
Absolutely.
also can smell a fake when they know a fake, right?
Exactly. But look, if you're networking, you're not a people person, you shouldn't be networking. You should go behind a computer and do, word processing or something, but if you're going to get out there and network with people, like people, give them, the benefit of the doubt.
Well, and let me just tack on here because you're talking all about relationship first, and people are using LinkedIn and other platforms right now. I've learned this. You probably have learned this. If you go in doing business, those blind, hi, I found you. I have a great new program. Would you like to sign up for my new program? People are trash canning. They are deleting those so fast. If
Exactly.
you go in with the relationship, the kids, the family, I saw a great post by you, boy, and you go in with that, the doors open much greater than just going with a hard sell, right?
Nobody wants to hear a pitch on the first, transaction, with them. They want to just, you can just simply say, hi, I'm wishing you a happy holiday season. It can be that simple. And by the way, when you're on LinkedIn, you should never just invite somebody and just click the button invite. You should always send them a note. Always set the stage, rock that virtual stage first.
So what's the next one?
Well, it's about them. So you got to ask questions. Ask a lot of questions about them. Keep it about them. Now, I don't know if we have some time. I can tell a quick little story.
Yeah, go for
Um,
it.
yeah. So, one day I'm watching TV, which I don't do a lot of, but I come across Tony Robbins, on TV. And of all things, he's on QVC and he's selling this $199 program. So, they say you can call into the program. And I hesitated and I hit myself like, why didn't I call in and say, oh, I had a chance? So I got a second chance because they said he was going to be on again. This time I took full opportunity and I called in and I got to talk to him. And there was a number on the screen that told how many units he was selling, and it was going through the roof. And he actually said to me, he says, would you like to come to my next event, Unleash the Power Within? So I got invited to Unleash the Power Within in Newark because I took the time, I jumped at the opportunity. I made it about him. It wasn't about me, the call. You see, I was endorsing him, saying, 30 years ago, you helped change my life. I read your book, Awaken the Giant Within, blah, 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 blah. It was all about him. And then it turned into something about me and for me.
So to me, that also tells you is these are real people. They may be rock stars, celebrities, again, Michael Jackson, to so many others that you dealt with. A lot of the times, once you get behind the scenes, they're very much genuine, human. They want to hang out with you. I've done it with sports celebrities, but you have to present yourself. You have to knock on the door. You have to take the first step. They're not going to come after you. You have to go after them.
So I read a book, a basketball legend who was actually an NBA top scorer, and I read his book, and I actually sent him a photo of me reading his book with the cover, and I sent it to him on Instagram with a note saying, I've read this book, and here's 5 principles that I found out about this. I want to interview you on my podcast. Now, guess what? You think that he's going to get back to me with that kind of approach versus, hey, I just like to have you on my podcast. I'm some stranger to him.
So
It's
give
about
us
him.
more. So give us more tips like that. Let's pause your list for a lesson because those are great tips to get in. Because with Twitter, with Instagram, there are so many platforms now you can reach through. And as we've seen with the virtual stages the last several months, these people are getting online, live, in their home. They want to engage with us in a new way that we've never had access before. So give us some good nuggets how we can actually utilize that better than ever right now.
Can you rephrase that? Sorry, I
So
not quite following that.
so if you're going to try to reach in like you just did with that photo, and all these people are jumping online with live streams and stuff, how can you better utilize that for you to go for your ask, for your connection? How can we get online, post, thread people in to build those relationships like you just did? Are there
Yeah.
other tricks?
Well, again, it's always making it about them. Now, here's the thing. So when you're talking about a celebrity, right? Every celebrity has heard the same thing. Oh, I loved your picture. I loved you in Rocky. I loved you in this movie. I loved you in that movie. It doesn't really mean a lot to most of these celebrities because they've heard it 50 million times. So you got to find something unique. So I'll give you a quick story. So Linda Blair, she was in The Exorcist. I reached out to Linda Blair. She quit the movie business and she opened up an animal sanctuary out in California, right? That's what's near and dear to her. So I am talking to her about what we can do to get the animals taken care of and get her ranch supported. That's what counts. Not, hey, I loved you in The Exorcist. I love when your head spun around and you vomited all over the place. Like, oh, she doesn't want to hear that, but she wants to hear, how can we take care of those little pooches?
So you're going for that human touch, the important
Yes.
touch. You're moving to a different layer from showmanship to get into real heartbeat. And because it's real heartbeat, they're going to go, thank you. It's their
Yeah.
passion now.
Yeah. It's about them. It's about their cause. It's about something that most people may not be thinking about because they're thinking about her as a movie star. That's what she's known as. But that's not what her destiny is right now. Her destiny is the animals. And when you can find a way to contribute to that, you got her ear.
So let's just take her for an example. You reached out, she agrees to be on the show. When you get an A-lister like that, what are the things you should do to have the rest of the program, the rest of the show? Because you don't want to become a fansy on these shows. You want to be professional, good, and treat them well. What do you do?
Yeah. So, I'll give an example. So, I've made friends with a billionaire, literally, an incredible human being. But it's not about that person's money. And they smell it, and they can smell it a mile away. You're not going to have that relationship. Again, it's just got to be about one person, another person. You're both equal, and you can't fawn all over them. You can't, oh my God, you can get their autograph if you want, but, you just can't, make them like they're above you because they won't resonate with that. They want somebody who can just be loosey goosey with them. Somebody goes slap them on the back and like, hey, buddy, just be a friend, just be a human being, because they're so busy getting their butts kissed by so many people.
What's one of the best interviews you have? What's one of the best people you work with that surprised you? The more you just treated them like a buddy at the bar, you're having a good time, it got richer and richer.
Yeah. So one of my idols, Dr. Denis Waitley, who wrote about 14 different books. He wrote a classic called The Psychology of Winning. He sent the Apollo astronauts to the moon, teach them mindset and how to win and how to get there. He teach the Apollo astronaut, not the Apollo, the Super Bowl champions, the Olympic gold medalists. And so, when I had him on my program, I told him that he's one of my top 5 motivational speakers of all time. And, what he said back to me kind of floored me. He said, something? He says, you are the next Denis Waitley. He says, you need to be out there and you're in my top 5 because I've never been interviewed quite the way, I've been interviewed by you. And I like your energy. So get out there, represent, because I'm 85. You're not yet.
That's fantastic.
So I like that.
When you get that endorsement free.
By a giant, by a hero, by somebody who, I read his book, like 30 something years ago.
What other tips? Let's go back to your 10 for a second. Again, keep taking notes, everybody. We're going to have a great time in the second half here. What's another one in your top 10 here to help us out?
Well, Rich, here's the thing. So there's only so much time in the day, going one-on-one networking, people can get burnt out, right? Unless you're just finding all the right people, but none of us find all the right people. So what you got to do is you got to have a strategy to reach the masses. And that's a newsletter, send out a newsletter regularly. That's a podcast. That's one of the reasons I put a podcast out so I can reach the masses. Create a group. I just created a brand new group on LinkedIn. It's called the Motivation Mastermind Group. Get in there. You got to be in it to win it. There's no reason not to be in a group like that. There's no reason to hesitate. There's no reason not to go right on your LinkedIn right now and get into that group and get into our game. Also, look, with my company, I have 2 Facebook groups. We've got a classic event every year called the Concierge Choice Awards. We have over 300 people in black tie. So you got to be known for some signature event. But that's how you reach more of the masses and not just do the one-on-one.
So when you go in those groups, one of the etiquettes that I've learned is you share. The more engagement you get in these groups, the more you share with each other, podcasters, talk show hosts, TV producers to each other, the more you co-collaborate and share. There's no egos. You're in there to help elevate everybody else. The more powerful those groups become, correct?
Well, look, you end every interaction with how can I help you? 5 simple words. How can I help you? And that shows the person on the other side that it's about them, not you pitching something about yourself. And again, it's about them. Now, what is the sweetest word in the English language, Rich?
Thank you or I love you.
Okay, that's close. Someone's name.
Yes.
So when I call you Rich, it's an endearing thing. If people send me emails and they say, "Hey," like, what do you mean, "Hey"? I have a name. It's Eli, So use people's names. But use it again. Don't overuse it. Don't use it insincerely. But people like to hear their own name.
And
It's flattery.
also, and again, if they have that nickname that like Trigger works for me just as well as Rich. If they
Yeah.
have it and it's part of the identity brand, use that as well. Because most people who have that, they love that as well.
Yeah, I like to call you Trigger. I think it's an incredible nickname.
So, what other tips we have here? Coming up on almost a half hour mark, but what are the things we got?
Well, I think everybody has heard the phrase, the fortune is in the follow-up. And I had to tell you, so I was in a networking group last week and I sent out an email to everybody, 32 people. 2 people responded back to me, right? So I did the follow-up, but the other people didn't. Now, how do they know what I'm there to provide for them? How do they know, they hardly know me. We hardly talked. So a lot of people go into the networking, but they're not really serious about networking. They don't follow up. They're there. They have a good time. They say it was great. No results. So if you're not following up, there's no point.
So, is that where you need to have a system, whether it's a spreadsheet, whether it's a CRM, whether it's a database? Does it help to have that funnel to make sure you don't miss those steps?
Well, look, I make it a habit, right after an event, everybody gets an email. There's no hesitation. There is no do or do not. You just do it. It's part of the system. Otherwise, I don't get into the networking to begin with. If I'm going to find excuses not to follow up, what's the point? If you're only 50% to the goal line, that doesn't score you the points. You're not getting the touchdown. You know, Score!
So, I just want to step back for a second because a lot of the people you've reached into, the Judy Collins and others, you don't get direct access to them. There's a gatekeeper, there's a publicist, or somebody. Talk about sometimes how you have to work with them to get to the main door because there's a step there. I think a lot of people miss, don't they?
I'm going to tell you some classic, So when I was that young whippersnapper going in cold calling, I walked into an office one time and this guy had the biggest desk I've ever seen. He had an American flag behind him. He had another flag, which later on I learned it was the New York State flag. And this guy looked larger than life. Who the heck is this guy? So when I went in to see him, I had no business card. I went in without an appointment. And what I learned, the reason I got to see him is because I failed like thousands of times before that, kept doing the same thing the same way. You know what that definition is, right? You do this thing the same way, right? So what I learned is something called the assumptive close with the receptionist. So what happens is you go over to the receptionist, right? And she goes, "Did you have an appointment?" I flashed something very official looking. At that time, I was selling memberships to the United States Chamber of Commerce. Had a very official looking badge, not a business card. And I said, he really needs to see me. It's about some very important stuff in Washington. I turned around, I sat down, and I didn't have cell phones back then. So I just pretended I'm looking at something, pulled something out of my pocket. And she's looking at me like, boy, this guy really must belong here. This guy's really serious. Because if you stand there and you engage with her, she's going to win. And, she's going to be like, she's going to ask you 4 more questions. You're going to go, homina, 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 and, you're going to be like Jackie Gleason. But when you turn around assumptively, like you own the place, you belong there, and you sit down, amazingly, she picked up the phone, called through. It turns out to be a guy. I met him. I'm like, turns out he says, "Oh, yeah, I work with Nelson Rockefeller." I said, "Can you define that a little bit better?" He says, "Yeah, I'm his lieutenant governor, guy by the name of Malcolm Wilson." I'm like, wow, that's a pretty good get. I had no idea who I was even cold calling on.
So again, you're saying own it. The minute you walk in, own it. Just like you step on
Confidence.
stage, own it.
Yeah, confidence. Like, you can, well, do you think you can call through? Do you mind? If you're like that, they're going to see through your weakness. You got to sound like you belong there.
I've also learned too, if you know the secretary or the admin's first name, immediately, hey, Susan, great to meet you. Or they introduce themselves, call them that. Just again, the relationship gets you past some of the layers of, I'm doing a cold call, I'm just doing a business call, flip it into a relationship. It does open up doors.
Yeah, look, I treat those people like they're gold. I notice things about them, and first thing I do when I walk in is I say, "Wow, that's a beautiful, scarf you got on. Where'd you get? Oh, those your kids?" That's how I start off the conversation. And then the really tough ones, they'll go right into like, "Do you have an appointment? What are you here for?" Yeah, they don't want to hear any of that, right?
Right.
They're strictly business, and that's when you better get your game in gear. But I call them on the phone, and some people dismiss them. Oh, they're just a gatekeeper. I'm going to dismiss them. They're arrogant to them. I'm the exact opposite. I'm sweet as pie. I'm making them my friend. I'm engaging them any way that I can.
Another poll here as we get ready to bring everybody in. When we bring everybody in, I encourage you to turn on your cameras. We'll bring them in microphones later on. But part of the virtual stage, we want to coach you to be confident on stage. We want you to see the faces, have fun with Eli and I tonight. So I'm going to start moving you in. Second poll, though, what are you? Are you an author, a speaker, a creator? Are you a host? Are you a producer? Are you a promoter? Obviously, Eli's done a little bit of everything on that list somewhere along the way. So we're going to drop that in there. And as I start moving people in, Eli, I would love you to tell us one of your favorite stories of celebrities, whether it's a train wreck, whether it's a good thing. What's one of your favorite go-to memories of being this connector of the stars and the way you network?
Well, I'll tell you about my little quick Michael Jackson story. So, I go to the Four Seasons Hotel. There 9 o'clock in the morning. I get there 9 o'clock. Don't be late. So I'm there a quarter to nine, waiting. An hour goes by, and no Michael Jackson. He'd left. Like, what do you mean he left? Then the next day, his spiritual advisor, who's a rabbi, actually not doctor, but Rabbi Shmuley Boteach, says to me, my kid's having a bris and Michael Jackson's coming, so you'll meet him there. Don't worry about it. Then I'm told he pulled an all-nighter recording session. Who knows if it was really an all-nighter recording session? Who knows what was up. Third time, I bring him to Carnegie Hall, which is the reason why he's there, and he's doing an event for me. I'm the producer, and all this paparazzi are surrounding him. I can't get near the guy. So here I am. I put the whole event together, and I couldn't even get near the guy. Did everything I possibly could. So not everything is just going to turn out the way you planned it, but you go with it. You handle it. You don't get frazzled or crazy. It turns out that I ended up having his. He got an award, and it turned out that they asked me to hold it in my house. So that was my consolation prize.
Now, the best thing to do in cases like that is, and I've learned, is stay classy, no back talking, no trash talking. Because again, you have these opportunities. It may come back around, it may not. But if you stay class act, you've at least protected your image, your reputation, no matter what else is going on, right?
Yeah, you can't really show people that you're upset, you're crazed. That just does not roll well. People enjoy seeing somebody who handles hard issues and seems like it's water off a duck's back. It's like, no big deal. People love, I'm watching people right now. I mean, they're in this COVID madness. Their businesses are falling apart, but they look cool as a cucumber. And you look at them like, wow, how do they stay so calm?
Here's the results of our polls as we get ready to open up the second half of the show here. So we have promoters in the room. We have the number one is promoters, and then we have creators and speakers and producers. This really falls into your wheelhouse of what you've done. I mean, you've kind of moved from one to the other. Where's your favorite sweet spot? Where does Eli like to really be?
Where do I like to be physically or mentally?
In like this career area. Do you like to be the creator, the host, the producer? Where do you really thrive?
Well, that's a great question because at one time I was the facilitator. I've always been the guy kind of behind the scenes, the guy, when I was the CEO of the seminar center, I was bringing in all these world famous people, people who are the number one book authors on the planet, like Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, which turns into American jargon, that was written by Dr. Richard Carlson. And I had Mark Victor Hansen, who wrote, of course, the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. So I was always the facilitator behind the scenes until I found out that, something, maybe I got the aptitude to actually get in front of the camera, do this podcast, because I have a whole lot of junk stuffed in my head from reading over 500 books. And I can shuffle through like book after book after book after book after book. I've literally read like over 1,000 books. And I'm like a self-help geek. So I got all this stuff from people who are a lot smarter than I am. And I figure, you know something, take my authentic self, add in the amalgam of all these other people. That's pretty cool kind of guy, I hope. So that's where the birth of the motivation show came about.
So we're going to open it up to the audience now. If you would like to ask Eli a question, please either raise your hand physically or unmute yourself. And one at a time, just a brief, hi, my name is Bob. Here's my question for you. We're going to see how many we could roll through here on the second half of the show. So welcome to the virtual stage. Who would like to go first tonight? Stephen, welcome to the show tonight.
Hey, thank you so much. Eli, I'm curious, how do you draw the line between name dropping that's too much versus name dropping that's credibility? So for instance, my perspective before you answer that is people that actually are operating at that level of wealth and operating, at that level, they're not seeing that as name dropping. It's just simply a part of their life. But with the layperson that's not in that level, right, they have that judgment. I'm just curious, what's your experience been with name dropping? How do you know you're overdoing it? Or
That's a great question.
So when you say name dropping, right?
Yep.
Like, as you notice, when I mentioned billionaire, I didn't even mention the name of that person.
Right.
To kind of protect them. I'm not looking to have, take advantage of that like that. So I want to protect their identity, protect the sanctity of our relationship. So if it's somebody at a high level, you only want to tell the stories that that they kind of would give you permission to tell anyway, something that helps make them look good.
But yeah, but again, sometimes if you drop too many names, people think you're just blowing yourself up. It's ego versus it's a good story. It has a point versus you're just all show and tell now.
Hey, Michael Jackson, was an event that I produced. He was not my buddy, and I don't pretend that he was, so he's just somebody that passed through my life, as did a lot of incredible people, Judy Collins and, Davy Jones of the Monkees. He gave 2 concerts for me, but he was not my friend. He was a great guy. I loved him. I thought he was genuine. He was a lot of fun, but, he wasn't a friend. And so I'm not going to drop his name other than in the context that he was part of my seminar center.
Awesome. Great question, Stephen. Thank you. Who wants to drop in another question? Unmute yourself. Introduce yourself real quickly here. This is your chance to get the expert advice. Drop on in. Crystal?
Crystal, hi. I'm Crystal, and I'm the bossy girl. I just wanted to say I have very briefly had the honor and pleasure of working with Eli, and it's been amazing. And I can say he does these things firsthand.
You're too sweet.
Oh, it's a fact. I always speak the truth. So, as you were talking and you said, be generous, find ways to give. I have found that you do that, even through your emails. It's, I was wondering if you have this. And by the way, how about I give you that? How do you go about figuring out what somebody might be interested in? How do you be generous? What does that look like? And not when you don't necessarily, I don't know what I would give. How do you do that?
Well, first of all, you have to make people feel good. And you're actually really good at making people feel good, because you and I didn't know each other for too long, and you actually did a very good job of making me feel good. I asked you a simple question. I asked you, can you take 10 seconds to subscribe to my podcast? It was done. I asked you if you can write a review. It was done. You did all the things that I asked you to do. You were very complimentary. You practically went through my entire list of 10 things. So you do a pretty good job of that. And like attracts like. So when you're kind to somebody, they're going to be kind back to you. One of the rules that I didn't get into is, introduce and refer people that can help each other. So that's what you do. You introduce other people, you make other people look good. You make it not about yourself, you make it about the other people. The gift will flow to you. But when you try too hard, you're going to have a problem. Now, my friend says it well, my friend Barry, right? He says what his father always told him. Anytime Barry used to get and start bragging about himself, he said, Barry, self-praise ain't worth a damn.
So actually, that's one of the reasons that the way I've built this show, honestly, is my job is to help make the guests the rock star. I want them to shine, have fun, and it's been lots of fun to see where that whole thing goes. So as you do podcasts, as you do talk shows, as you do production, I really encourage the very same thing. Let them shine, set them up for success. It's just amazing what happens when they feel that they have that ability and that freedom.
Yeah,
Really
and you
well
know,
done.
Rich, we have a master of that on here. We have a guy by the name of Dave Sudavan, who's literally a master, and you've probably seen him on the C-Suite Network. And the minute I get onto the show, and he's right away there praising me, he's praising everybody else. He never talks about himself. He lets other people talk about him.
Well, Dave just unmuted his microphone. Dave, welcome to the virtual stage. You have a question for us tonight, sir?
No, in fact, there is a praise that I need to sing now, and it's about Eli. The very first time I picked up the phone and called him, and the reason for my call is, please accept my gift. And you know what he said? I'm going to give you something, and then we'll talk about it later. So he introduces a client to me in Chicagoland area, and the other person was already almost signed up a deal to do the website. So Eli tells him, do not do anything before talking to Dave Digislate. And the person calls and is so happy, and he called up Eli. And then he told Eli that, thank you very much, I've signed up with Dave. And now I pick up the phone and call Eli, okay, will you accept my gift now?
And you know, this virtual background is courtesy of Dave. He's look what he did here. It's beautiful.
And coming up in 2021, we have new affiliates, and I'm going to announce in 2021 an affiliate with Dave, but you have to come back in 2021. We have some great surprises coming up with, but that's and we have coming back because the give relationship is growing. Just a lot of the networking stuff that we're talking about tonight, it's happening every week here.
But that's a perfect example. You know, I just saw something in Dave that I liked, and I saw some genuineness. I saw a guy who was spiritual, and I said, this is the kind of guy that I want to have in my sandbox. This is the kind of guy that I want to bring my network to. And it wasn't about what can I get for it. I wasn't interested in a commission. I wasn't interested in anything. I was just interested in honoring a guy that we had, you know, such a great hour talk, and like, let me see what I can do to put him together. I know this guy can do good work. I have faith in him. And by having faith in him, he's had enormous faith back in me. So again, but it's him first, you know, and Dave's just a master at that by getting on, and he's talking about everybody else, praising everybody else. Look how he's praising me here. You know, he's swelling my head.
That's the truth. I'm telling the truth. And I can't say enough the amount of people Eli has introduced to me, and he is an ace connector. He is an ace connector, and definitely I would rather say people in this group today are very lucky to have a discussion with Eli and Rich. Thank you very much for bringing Eli on the show, and definitely it'll be a plus point and benefit for lots of viewers who will be viewing offline. Thanks,
Thank
Eli.
you, Dave.
Thank you.
Rich.
Thank you. Who else have a question for Eli here? Again, unmute yourself and join in the conversation. This is where you guys get. I've got a couple more questions myself, but I want to let you really ask the experts or the connectors here. Any questions we have from the audience tonight? Let me talk about show running for a second here, Eli. When you have these guests on, the idea of letting them shine and letting them go, there's also, they expect a good show to be, they're ready for something to be fluid, produced well. Talk about show, make sure this thing is going to be stellar and not just hobbled together.
Well, you know, I had a guy that I interviewed yesterday. He's the editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine. It's a pretty big deal. You know, Entrepreneur Magazine is something I've been reading since I was a kid. You know, if you're an entrepreneur, that's like the Bible. And look, you know, I asked him if he can take 45 minutes in an interview. He said he's only got 30 minutes. I respect that. You know, he gave me the interview. That's the key. So we got on. The first thing I asked him, you know, how you for time? And he said literally 30 minutes. And I made sure that I stopped at 30 minutes. I didn't overtalk it. I didn't pitch him anything. I didn't, you know, tell him all about me, what I wanted. It's about him. I have to honor him first. The relationship will build. It'll come later. I have integrity. And, you know, Don Miguel Ruiz wrote a book called The Four Agreements. And one of the pillars of that is, you know, to be impeccable with your word. Not good with your word, not great with your word, not excellent with your word, impeccable. Most people I know are either good, great, excellent, but they're not impeccable. You got to get to the impeccable level.
So I'm going to pause. Just another great one popped in. But again, anyone else got questions here tonight, please unmute and jump back in.
Yeah, throw me a zinger. That's okay.
Put them on the hot seat. Anyone?
Yes, that's okay.
I see Jay. Did you just unmute yourself, Jay? Okay, let me. Jay, you are on, I believe. Give it a try here. No, wait.
You have to unmute.
Yep. Let's see if we can unmute you, Jay. Give it a try again. It's being difficult for a second. Okay, Jay, you're on. Go for it.
Very good.
I think we're having an audio connection.
You brought up several points today.
We got a garbled connection, I'm afraid. Drop it in the chat box, and I will read it.
CP30.
Drop it into the chat box, and I will read it that way. Open up the chat box and drop your question here. Sorry about that, but I will relay that on behalf of you, Jay. Anyone else got a question here tonight? We really appreciate everyone dropping on in. Eli, when it comes to those guests, you start the conversation, you have a guest on. What do you do when they start asking you to open up your Rolodex? And they're like, you're trying to have the interview, but now they want you to open up to the Michael Jacksons, to the Judys. And they're like, can you do this for me? How do you set up boundaries so you don't become a funnel that you don't have permission to be?
Well, most people don't ask that, interestingly enough. There was one guy who did ask me to connect with a high-level person, but he was pretty high-level himself, and he was willing to make kind of an exchange with me, introduce me to somebody at a high level as well. So it's like, okay, we're even on this. But yeah, again, what I'm concerned about is not to take advantage of the relationship that I have and not just throw them all over the place. So there's got to be a need, for the relationship. Otherwise, I'm not going to introduce. And again, a lot of these people, they're not my close friends. They're relationships. So I'm going to pick and choose the opportunities, and it's got to kind of funnel around something that's going to help them. Like take Mark Victor Hansen, for example, who's a buddy of mine. He's the #1 bookseller in history, 600,000 books. So he wrote a new book. It's called Ask, The Art of the Ask. And, which is a whole other great subject to get into, the importance of asking. But, he doesn't really need a lot. These people don't need a lot, but they want something. Everybody wants something. Right now, what he wants is he wants people to read his book. So if I can introduce him to somebody that can help along that cause, he will be more open to that. And if so you can figure out how to help him to sell his books, I will introduce you. Not just introduce blindly.
We just had a couple people drop in late to the show. Welcome. Great to have you. If you have a question for Eli, please unmute yourself and ask right now. We're coming down toward the end, but there's still time to ask your questions or drop them into the chat box if you're not able to go on camera or microphone. Eli, what is the biggest mistake that you should definitely avoid? The killer of all things when it comes to networking.
Forget about fear. Forget about your fear. Throw that in the water. So Dr. Susan Jeffers wrote a classic book about 25 years ago called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. I suggest you read it, but if you don't read it, just think about the title. Feel the fear and do it anyway. So the first time that I challenged myself on a level like this, I was up on a radio station, WR Radio in New York City, found out it was syndicated all over the country. Jesus, there might be like 50,000 people listening to this. And man, was I in fear. Boy, was I schwitzing. But you know something? I didn't die. I felt the fear. I met it head on, went up there and did the best that I could. So I didn't die from the experience. So we're all going to feel fear. We're all going to feel trepidation. We're all going to feel a little bit nervous. We're all going to feel unsure of ourselves. Even Johnny Carson, who you mentioned before, Johnny Carson on stage looked like he was the most secure person on the planet. When Johnny Carson got into a social meeting, the first thing he did was he told to his wife, "We got to get out of here." He was so uncomfortable. He couldn't handle that. So,
Well,
Just
really
goes to
good
show you.
segue. Maybe coming up on Monday again. Monday, Mark Schulman is going to be with me, and we're going to talk about fear of the stage, of public speaking. He's a drummer, he's a rock star, performer, but he literally had fear of the stage for so long. He hid behind the drum set, and now he speaks and tours. But that whole fear, Eli, is a huge thing, isn't it?
Well, let me tell you something. When I was a kid, I would probably be voted least likely to succeed. Why? Because I sat in the back of the room and I didn't participate. So I did pretty well in actually all the grades. There was one thing that I never even understood the word, and the word was initiative. And I didn't even know the word existed. And I'm a kid, like I had to look it up or ask, what is this word? How do you pronounce it? And I never forgot. And it said I lacked initiative because I was the quiet guy in the back of the class who didn't ask questions, didn't participate. But guess what? All the people in the front of the room, they got the girls. They seem to be having all the fun. So that's why it led me to like reading every book I can. I don't want to be that guy in the back of the room. And somehow I found out, hey, there's this other personality with me, not the schizophrenic personality, but there's this thing called the extroverted introvert. And I found out this other guy in me called the extrovert. Pulled it
Well,
out. So
and through the chat box, someone was just going to ask, "What's that biggest fear?" That was their question, and they said dot dot dot. I think it may be the fear. So we all relate to it. The number one fear is public speaking. Now, with the age of
over
COVID
deaf,
and the
more than
virtual
deaf.
stage, it's a camera and the microphone. Fear levels gone to a whole new level, and we're all networking now with Zoom calls and virtual calls. So everyone's fear is down to no level, haven't it?
Well, Rich, it's about not worrying about being judged. You see, we're so self-conscious. Oh my God, what if I don't say the right thing? What if I don't look the right way? We're so self-conscious, Just go there, be your authentic self and to hell with it all. Just be damned. Put your personality on the line. And here's the key, 2 words. Will be vulnerable. Be willing to be vulnerable, because when you show your vulnerable side, when you show people your authentic story, that you were the shy kid, you weren't always the successful guy, people can relate to that. You weren't born with a silver spoon in your mouth. I mean, my father in his best year, he didn't crack the $10,000 a year, income level. So I had to find things out on my own. So, I had to feel that fear. I had to overcome it all. I had to get over myself. I had to not worry about what people think about me. Sure, I still think about it, but I don't get obsessed with it. So I can get on here and I can just, what the hell, say whatever I want, how I want, as long as you're there to help make a difference for people. That is my goal tonight. And any time that I do anything, my goal in life is to make people just 1% better simply because they know me. It's not
So
about me. It's not about them making me better. It's about me making them better.
just as you launched into that, Eli, Joel chimed in to ask you how to negotiate those things, and you just nailed his question without even asking the question. We took one off the board very easily. This is one of the things that I do. And again, you were just talking about those things you need to overcome. I've been rocking the virtual stage. I've been a broadcaster, public speaker many years, and I fight with a stutter all my life. Everything you're talking about is get over yourself, push through it, the initiative. I make a living doing this, and yet I coach people. And the big joke is the guy that stutters will help you make great speeches. But that's part of the thing, Eli, you're talking about is we have to get past those and figure out how to push through it, right?
Look,
Learn how to push through it.
I have times where I stutter. I have to edit my podcast. I say the same thing 2 or 3 times, and like, so what? That's that's actually kind of makes you real. If you really think about it, you're not this, photoshopped, person. You're a real person, like, and people can relate to you because of your stutter. So turn it into an advantage. Why does it have to be a disadvantage? Doesn't mean you have to go on, and pray that you continue to stutter more, but just go with it. So what,
In the last couple of minutes, this is my gift that I try to get back to my guests here. This is one of the ahas, the surprises. I would like the studio audience here to unmute themselves very briefly. If you could give a feedback, an attaboy, what was your biggest takeaway tonight from Eli? Just reflect back to them, because as speakers on stage, on camera, we often do not get to hear from people. Did we make an impact? Did we touch? I'd like the audience tonight to just shortly say, Eli, thanks, boom. This was my big takeaway tonight. If you have one of those, unmute yourself, and let's see how many of these we can crank through in a couple moments here.
Okay, Eli, Robert here.
Thanks a lot for the invite, by the way, to the network. Of the way I got to know you is through C-suite invite and coming on tonight. So I have to join that organization because I've been working on what my marketing direction is going to go for the new year. So that's one of the things on my list, to get involved more heavily with C-suite and get involved as much as I can doing the online networking, the virtual stuff.
Well, that's great because you're a talented guy. And, I like to think that being in my sandbox and being in the sandbox with Dave and being in the sandbox with Rich, all their C-suites, and Dan Goodwin and Joel Bryan here, we got a bunch of people who are part of that network. And these are all champions. These are all people who are really brilliant at what they do. I mean, I learned from everyone here. And so you're going to be part of a great network, and you're going to benefit from that. And I'm going to make sure, because I'm going to help mentor you through that. So anybody that comes, through something that I do, I try to be their mentor if they want me to be, in whatever way that I can. And I'm going to actually pick your brains too. You're a smart guy, so you got a lot of stuff I need to know.
Who else has got an
I'd jump
attaboy?
on that one. I'd jump on that one, Robert. So Eli, from where I was, those two books, Face the Fear and Do It Anyway, and The Ask, I listened to that on Audible, and I actually was in another meeting where he talked about that whole book and kind of gave the psychology, how it came to be and stuff. And awesome book. So just add those to your list if you don't have them on your list already.
Yeah, kick the fear in the ass. It's going to be there. So what? Go ahead, make a fool of yourself. What's the worst that can really happen? And look, very rarely does somebody really make a fool of themselves. Just get out of your ego, get out of your mind. Just do what you got to do. Get out there, be brave. And it's that old saying again. You never regret the things that you do. You only regret the things that you don't do. When I look back in my life, I only regret the decisions I didn't make to do something. I would like to have been that first baseman for the New York Mets. I would like to have followed that up. That's what I regret, not the $1,000 I spent to do something.
What other do we have here? Anyone else want to give a feedback here? Yeah, go for it, Crystal.
I have one. I just wanted to say, I think that your point about when you're networking, look at quality over quantity was really important. As a single mom living in the COVID world, educating at home with two girls, running a business, and trying to get through life, and always feeling like I'm failing because there's so many people I want to know and I want to give it all, but you can't. And so quality over quantity, I think, really made sense to me. And I'm really going to focus on, okay, if there's 5 people or 10 people that I really want to know in 2021, who are they? And what does that look like?
Well, Crystal, I'm going to be your quality, and you're going to be my quality. And by the way, you should get everybody your YouTube video, because you're a star and you have to understand and believe that you're a star. You've got a lot to offer. I loved your video. It was very powerful.
Thank you.
And you have a story of, you had a real big challenge in your life, something that you overcame that most people would be crushed by. And you overcame that, and here you are today. If people knew your story, you would be all over TV. And you got to tell that story.
I got to figure out how to do that. And I would love your help.
I'm there for you.
Here's one of the things we come down the end. Eli is on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. We're both connectors. We both love to do this. And for any of you that are trying to expand your reach, this is the whole reason we're doing the show. Whether it's stage presence, whether it's podcast, whether it's voice, whether there's so much more that we have to get into now to help make your stories get out there, like Crystal's and like all of you. Reach out. This is what we do. This is what I love to do. Eli loves to do. He has his portion of it. I have my portion of it. And that's where the network is so important. That's why I wanted Eli on tonight to talk about networking. I've got one from the chat box here. Eli, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to hear your bright words of wisdom. You make a big difference in the lives of those you touch because you really do care about helping others. That's what shines through today and always. You bring optimism to everybody.
That's so beautiful. Sweet. Yeah. And, one of my parting point is people should stay in touch with each other. They should, wish them a happy Thanksgiving and wish somebody a happy holiday, wish somebody a happy New Year. Don't just, once a year or twice a year pop up with something. Stay in touch, be in connection. People are not as connected as they used to be. There's no reason why everybody on here can't kind of spread the love to each other more than once a year.
Eli, thank you very much for being my guest tonight. I really appreciate it. Again, find him on LinkedIn, find him on social media. In the replay of this, we have social media links. We also want to enhance the broadcast with many of the things he shared with us tonight. So we'll have embedded things. There will be a full replay of this. Share with people you know. Again, Monday, December 14th, we're going to do with Mark Schulman, and we're going to talk about overcoming that stage fright. Many of us deal with it, whether it's performance, whether it's the whole image thing. There's so much stage fright to wrap around. He's going to talk about his rock and roll experience. And then on Wednesday, the 16th, Andrew Weiss will be with us. If you're looking for more speaking opportunities, more shows to get on, more events to find out where the virtual events are taking place, because really everything's shifting virtual, Andrew's going to give us some insights of how to find those, where to go, how to get on the A list to get up on those. So join that. Again, Eli, thank you very much for being with us. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight.
Thank you, Trigger.
We will do it
You're the
again
man.
next Wednesday, next Monday. Thanks for rocking the virtual stage. Everyone stay
Peace.
safe. God bless. Have a great week.
Love you guys.